What is going on, good, brave, and heroic listeners? This week, I wanted to give you a couple of disclaimers before we get into the episode. So, here's the thing we recorded this episode a few weeks ago, right at the beginning of us getting started again after a little hiatus that we took where the girls were sick, we were sick, and we were just basically going through it. When we recorded this episode, it had been about a month since we recorded our last episode. So, all transparency, I made a mistake in recording the audio. And so we only got really, really bad audio. And if you know me, I am not an audio guy, I'm a video guy, but I did the absolute best that I could to recover the audio to a point where it was listenable, listen able, or whatever the case may be. Now, you're gonna notice that the audio is not so great. So maybe you want to skip this week's episode. But I just want to tell you that even though we had initially decided that we weren't going to post it, this week I decided to post it, and there's two reasons for that. First reason is Joanna is sick once again. She has laryngitis, which literally means she can't speak. She barely has a voice. Second, the sec I already said second, but the second reason is that there are some gems in this episode. And I thought about it and I said, hey, would I rather forego episode completely or put out an episode that probably doesn't have the best audio, but it still has some gems in it? So if you would be patient enough to listen through this one, I think you're going to get something special out of it because it's literally not our words. These are words that come from another source, and you probably already know because of the title. But either way, I hope that it blesses you. If you are not able to make it past the audio, thank you for trying. I love you guys, and I hope to see you guys in the next episode. Enjoy. Talk to you guys later, or talk into a camera where you listen to it later, or whatever that weird thing YouTube does. God bless you guys. Peace. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Good, Brave, and Heroic podcast. Some of you have probably been wondering, where they at though? Like, it's been, I think we missed a month.
Yeah,
Right, it's
everybody's
been-
been sick. Everyone's sick.
Everybody got sick. Some family stuff that we had to attend to. Just a lot has been going on. So we would appreciate your prayers, but we're gonna jump right past that. We're gonna get into today's episode because I think that today's topic will kind of touch a little bit on what's been going on lately, since we're going to be talking about. Did you forget?
I know it. It's in my head, but I can't get it out. Like,
I know the words, but they have not been formulated correctly. We're going to be discussing just what.
what God has been talking to us about lately.
There you go. There you have it, folks.
Just in case, put it in the cat. Like, what has God?
What?
So that it looks a lot more confident.
How do you want me to? How do
Like,
you,
he's just like.
how do you want me to put it? What has God? Like, what is the movements? What is it? What am I portraying in the edit with that? Is that your
The words will be
arms or-
coming here.
Gotcha. You know, we'll see. We'll see if our editor does that. You know, Eric, our editor.
I'm joking.
So, if you want me to.
No.
Sorry. Anyways, so yeah. So, what has God been speaking to you lately? That's not something that we're short on as of late.
It's nice.
Yeah, definitely nice. It's been a lot that God has been speaking to you. Is there like a general theme for you? Like, and the hope is that maybe some people listening will gain some encouragement, because a lot of what we've been hearing has been encouragement from God, confirmation, and just like stay the course. I got you, type of stuff. So hopefully that'll help some people that are listening. But for you, has there been a theme?
It's been the same. So I feel like when God speaks to a family or to a marriage, there's like this overarching theme, but then there's like sub themes to that, tailored to each individual of that family.
Yeah.
So while we've been getting the same direction from God, for me, it's been about endurance and attitude.
Endurance and attitude. Right, because like you said, we're obviously married. So a lot of what God has been speaking to us, because we're in the season together, has been similar. But your sub themes are, what you say, an attitude and
Endurance.
endurance. I never thought about that actually. I would say my sub themes are, I keep thinking of a joke, and I don't want to tell a joke right now, but I actually think of what the sub theme is. My sub themes would probably be, wow, for the longest time now, it has been discipline. That's a huge one, but that one, it's been a sub theme for so long that it feels like it's a theme.
That's what endurance is like for me. And so out of endurance grew attitude. It's the sub to the sub.
So, what are your subs today? Yeah, so I mean, discipline has been a big one for me. I know I have other ones, but discipline has been a really big one for me. That's been something that God has been dealing with me specifically. And I would also say at the same time, he's just been like really calling me to trust him. But like in a very relational way. And so a lot of the sub themes for me have been a lot about relating to him and learning who I am in him and all of that.
You know what I'm remembering right now? That thing that he spoke to you not too long ago about, so like in his taking you through this journey of what discipline is and defining that for you and pulling out those skills in you that are already in you, but you have to like discover them, find them, and he's molding them as you do that with discipline. I feel like one of those molding moments was when he said to you something along the lines of what's necessary and what's important.
I still have that on the board.
Yeah.
So that one was the difference between what is necessary and what is important is your choice. And that, okay, so I'm glad you bring that up because that one was a
Siri was about to say something.
Siri and you're trying to be on the podcast. My phone is over there, that's what. What did I say? I'm glad that you brought that up because, did I say anything after that? Or you just saying no because you don't remember?
No.
Okay, so I'm glad that you bring that up because that was a very transitional one for me. So discipline has kind of been developing in waves. Another big wave was when God told me discipline is a gift to you. And so for a while, I felt like he was calling me to be more disciplined. And all my life, I felt like a very undisciplined person. I got by mostly based on just creativity and like just raw talent. I never really applied myself to specifically working on things.
One of those. I
Right?
didn't have to study
Yeah.
past.
I don't think I've ever studied a day in my life. I know I did study. I remember studying once to see how it felt to study.
To
I'm
see those
so-
little people.
I'm so serious. I'm so serious.
Meanwhile,
I was like, this is gonna sound crazy, but I'm just being honest. I remember one time in college, it was for a church history class. I have a Bible major, so I have a Bible degree, I should say. So I was like, yo, this class might be a little tough. Maybe I should try studying and see whatever. But yeah, anyway, so for the most part, for me, for the most part, as long as I read the material, I'm gonna do fine on the test. I'm gonna do pretty well. Sometimes even if I don't read the material, I'll do well. But anyways, that's not
and
the
then for
related.
you at this moment, you can write that guy.
That's a blessing and a curse though, because when you can get by without actually working hard, then you get used to just getting by. And I feel like God caused a hard stop on that. He's like, it's not about you getting by now. Literally, I felt like I was saying, if you want to be top 1%, then you have to do top 1% things. Now, not everybody wants to be the best of the best, but I do. Like, I'm sorry, like I want to be great, not for my sake, for my family's sake, for my legacy's sake, for God and His glory. I like seriously, genuinely want to reach my potential. And I think I have a good amount of potential, and a lot of it has to do in my heart has to do with me just wanting to live for God's glory. And I started to realize that I wasn't going to get there without doing hard things and without applying myself in difficult ways. And for a while, discipline, while God was pushing me in that direction, it was like tough. It was arduous, and it was just I was not feeling it. And one day He told me, it's a gift to you. And that shifted my perspective.
Yeah,
Like, that's a discipline is a gift to you.
to never think about it that way. Discipline isn't fun. It's
I
not
never thought
something
of
to
it
get
that way.
excited about.
Never thought of it that way. Always thought of it as the means by which I could be better, be a better dad, be a better man, be a better husband, be a better worker, whatever, content creator, whatever. But that wasn't enough. It wasn't until I saw that it was a gift to me that my mindset really shifted, and I said, oh, wait a minute. When I'm disciplined, I have better days. When I'm disciplined, I'm less anxious. When I'm disciplined, I feel more fulfilled. Therefore, I feel happier. Therefore, I treat my family better. And the payoffs just kept going. And so I started to see how much of a gift it was to me. Then boom, the next one was the difference between what is necessary and what is important. Both very high on the list. Something that's absolutely necessary is also very important. Like, you can't breathe without air. You can't survive without food. These are things that are necessary for you to be able to continue. And yet there are also things that are extremely important, but they're not necessary. And so the only difference between those two things is that you have a choice between them, between what is important. Whereas what's necessary, you don't have a choice because it's necessary. But what is important, we'll put it to the side because we think we have another day. We think, I'll get to it eventually. It's really important to me to live out my dream. And yet 10 years have passed by and you haven't done one thing to try to achieve your dream. And it's your dream. And if I asked you if your dream was important to you, you would say yes. And yet, has your life mirrored the truth of its importance? Maybe, maybe not. And so that was another mindset shift for me. I was like, oh, snap. I better be waking up at 5 a.m. every day because that's something I committed to because it's the only time I get to pray. And I better go to the gym before my family wakes up so that I can get back when they're just waking up and help us start our day. Because if I'm not going if I'm not waking up to pray way before they're sleeping and leaving to the gym before they're waking up, then I'm not going to get back in time to help. And that's important to me. And so, yeah, that's like huge. I wanted to ask you a question before we continue down that direction, though. We talk about sub themes. I'm curious for you what the main theme is. So think of your word,
Okay.
and then we're going to count down 1, 2, 3.
So much pressure.
I just want to see it's not about us getting the same word. It's about wanting to see what it was for you.
It's because I have so many.
What's the main theme? For us, so we've been in a process of 2 years and some change. And for me, I have the word for these past 2 years, what I believe it is.
One word.
One word. You can't say a sentence. Ready? 1, 2,
I have a choice now.
3. Obedience. I knew you were gonna say faith. I was like, she's gonna say faith. So why faith?
Because I think of obedience. Joking. Because I feel like a lot of the things that we've been going through have required a whole other level of faith. A lot of it requires obedience, but to me, I'm not seeing it as obedience. I've been seeing it as, I mean, it is, but I've been seeing it as God is saying something to us, and we have a choice to respond in faith or not. And not knowing what it looks like, what the next step looks like, what it looks like after our yes, has required a lot of faith. It's just every decision that we have made has required a lot of faith. Every decision that we've made has been like, we cannot see like past here. We just can't. Well, we have no idea what our decision right now is going to mean.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, we kind of have an idea what it's going to play out like for the next week.
Yeah,
No, we don't even know what's going to happen the next day. Like,
right.
no idea.
We've
That's why
we've had a lot of days like that.
yeah. So it's not just our response needs to be in obedience that requires a lot of faith. It's also the staying the course when we still can't see weeks later. It's continuing to pray and seek for God for the same thing over and over,
Persisting in faith.
and know that He is still faithful.
Even when your circumstances don't look like it.
Yeah.
For me, it's obedience because it's kind of like the same thing you said. But for me, it's obedience because even in the midst of circumstances, like let's think of the picture of Peter walking on water, right? The big thing that everybody harps on, of course, is the fact that he started to sink. And it took faith for him to be able to even step out on the boat. But what if Jesus would have said to him, keep walking on water right after that? That's how it's felt for us.
Mm-hmm.
It's felt like we have taken that step out into the water and we're walking, we start sinking. And then he's like, keep walking on water.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so loud. Like God has been very loud these past 2 years, which I'm grateful for. Because we needed that to sustain us. Because we're not perfect Christians, we're human beings. I have failed so many times on the discipline front. I'm sure you felt like you failed in the faith front. I felt like I failed on the obedience front at times. I'm sure you feel like you failed on the attitude front, maybe. And I'm realizing it's not about like being perfect in all of these things. I feel like God is like, I'm just doing a work in you.
Mhm.
I'm doing a work in you through this process. And I know it's hard. I know it's difficult. I called you to it and you were willing to answer the call. And then you got out here and you saw that it was not easy.
Yeah, walk on the water, we're like, oh, my feet are cold.
Yeah.
Oh, it's things.
And I'm sinking.
Oh, I'm thinking.
Oh, there's a storm coming up. And you're like, but I'm walking on water. And he told me to come walk out here. And I know he told me. And there's people chirping like, yo, you're wilding, bro. Do you know what you're doing out there? I don't know what I'm doing out
You
here.
got water shoes on?
You don't got water shoes on? You walking on water? You don't got water shoes? I don't know why that's the voice in my head. You're walking on water? You don't got water shoes? But yeah, and it's like the Bible says that wisdom is proven by its fruit. And fruit from this season hasn't come out yet. Well, yes, you are right. There is a lot of fruit.
Not fruit for others to pay from.
Not fruit for,
It's just for us right now.
okay. Not fruit for others to pick. Okay, sorry. You can be dropping bombs like that and just be, you gotta do a little stank face.
I can't stand face my own lines.
If it's that good, you gotta stank face it. I stank face my own lines if they're really stinky. Anyway, so there's been a lot of fruit for us. A lot of fruit for us personally, for our marriage, for our kids. It has been difficult. And one day it's going to bear the fruit that God designs for it. And wisdom will be proven by its fruit. It's like, oh, it was a wise decision for Eric and Joanna to step out in crazy faith. Shout out to Mike Todd.
He's around our age, right?
I don't know.
Because I'm
Maybe
wondering
a
if he's
little older.
Theo or if he's Primo. I think he's Primo. He can always be a
No, he's Primo. He's Primo. He's not Theo.
Okay.
Tim Ross is Theo.
Yeah,
Yes, Theo. Yeah, he's Theo. Can you explain to him what you mean by this?
So when we really like someone that we listen to often, we really, really relate to them and wish that we were close to them, but we're not. And that sounds crazy, but we like adopt them into our family. And so Tim Ross,
Without them knowing.
without them knowing, Tim Ross is affectionately our Theo. And
Theo Tim, we call him.
Theo Tim and Preston.
Theo Percy
You
Press.
probably won't like that nickname if you ever listen to
It
this.
was her.
It was natural. You're Theo too.
My
Yes.
Todd's 36.
Okay, yeah, he's our cousin.
That's
Primo.
That's Primo.
That's Primo.
Primo Mike.
Mhm.
Sidebar, if you're Transformation Nation, their theme in 2022 was Here's Holy, right?
Mhm.
And we went to visit, and because we would watch the sermons sometimes, our daughter Kaya would, she refers to Transformation Church as Here is Holy. So when we were going, we're like, we're going to Here is Holy. And then when we got there, we're like, this is Here is Holy. And she's like, we're at Here is Holy. And then every once in a while, she'll be like, I want to go to Here is Holy. So yeah, that's a funny story. What were we talking about? We got sidetracked.
Water shoes.
Water streams, right? So
Oh no, people picking off fruit.
yeah. So I mean, the idea is that eventually the fruit will prove the wisdom of all those decisions. And since we're talking about what God has been speaking to us, and because I think a little bit of the stuff that if people know us and know what has been going on for a while now, there's probably some of our friends who think, well, some of my boys have told me like, yo, you're a little crazy right now. And the ones who are close enough to feel what's the word? Like they are close enough to say something like that and not be scared to.
It's more like they're trying to keep us accountable.
Right. Or they want to understand and stuff like that. So, one of the things that I always think about, not to sound, what's the word? Like I think more of myself than I am. But if we look at how God dealt with people in the Bible, man, he was calling people to have faith beyond their circumstances all throughout scripture. And granted, I understand Jesus died already, he resurrected. Maybe for some people, I think they have this kind of thought where God doesn't do that anymore. And so God just wants you to lead a normal life and just.
Listen, I wish it were that easy.
I wish, right? And just live like a life where you just go to church consistently, you serve, you live out your purpose, whatever that means, and you die and you go to heaven. But I just feel like God still wants to do great things with his people. And in order for him to do that, he has to work in them. And when this all started for me, the one thing that God said was that through Ty, a friend of ours, great pastor out in North Carolina, right?
Mhm.
He said to me, God had surgery. This situation, like I wouldn't be who I am today if these past 2 years than I am. The way that I've grown, the way that I've changed, the way that it's bananas. Like a lot of people don't know because I can't. Like you really can't. I don't know, like you're not close enough to tell. You tell me, have I changed the past 2 years? Like that's the only way I can think of it. Like, have I changed a lot in the past 2 years? Because I feel like I have. And we had to go through these tough situations because that's what created the atmosphere. That's what created the means by which God had a table to do surgery on me. And I'm sure with you the same.
And we don't have to go all the way back to like Old Testament stories. When you think of radical things, you think of like the sea opening up. You think of Noah making this huge living space for animals and humans for God knows how long. And we think, okay, well, that was then. What are you doing now? you know? But people think about when they're reading the New Testament stories, they're reading how people are traveling from one place to another. And they're not thinking twice, wait a minute, did they have a family? Were they taking care of their parents? How are they getting money? How are they supplying for these trips? How are they eating? We don't see them taking breaks and eating.
Bro, look at Paul. Paul wrote more than, I think 60, but I'm going to say 50, more than 50% of the New Testament, just to be, or maybe it's 30. Nah, I don't know. He wrote a lot of the New Testament. The number is escaping me right now. But a lot of the New Testament is written by Paul. And my man wrote Philippians while he was in jail. And Philippians is a book that talks about joy.
And nowhere in the New Testament do you see people traveling like this, right? And saying, and in their conversations with people, like, oh, or to the crowd, like, oh, give me a second, do you have somewhere for me to put my luggage and my clothes, my bag of clothes? Did they carry clothes? Like, what? How did they survive the weather? Were they prepared in that way? Or it was probably a struggle to know what they were going to eat next, to know if they were going to take a shower, if they were going to have something to wear. That didn't seem to be a thought.
Yeah.
But those were struggles.
Paul went from a life where he was a prestigious person of society with Roman citizenship to becoming a part of the church and becoming an apostle, and goes and lives a life where he's stoned, beaten multiple times, shipwrecked multiple times, thrown in jail. My man goes through it. And he's able to get to the point where he says that his joy in God is unbounded. Does everybody get there? I don't think so. But, and the suffering lasts forever? I don't think so.
Well, that's something I've been thinking about these past several days, is that not everyone is called to the same thing. So not everyone is going to be required to have the same kind of radical faith.
No. And for some people, radical faith might be something totally different.
Yeah.
Right? Because for all of us, there's a different thing inside of us that God needs to take out.
And in his own way for you.
Exactly. And your story is going to be different. Your story is going to be a certain way. But the one thing you don't want to do is not submit to that story. Not have the faith in God to say, I'm going to trust you, even though I don't like the way this looks like it's going. I'm going to trust that you have a partner for me, even though I would rather choose for myself. And I got a girl right here. And I know you're saying that she's not the one for me, but boy, do I like what she's doing in my life right now. So I'm going to stick with her. Or it's going to be tough when you feel like you got that promotion for that job and God says, don't take it. Why not? Why would God tell you not to do something that you desperately want to do? It's because he knows something you don't know.
Or he tells you to take the job that's going to pay you the least amount of salary you've ever been paid.
Hi, Joanna.
But the
Coming from the job that paid you the most you've ever been paid.
most living.
And it's like, why would God call you to do things like this? He knows something you don't know. And if you would just trust him. Like, let's contextualize this a little bit. Let's add some I don't know what word I'm looking for, but let's just look at this for a little bit. We're literally talking about the God of the universe that knows all things and is all powerful. And he tells you something that doesn't make sense to you. If we believe that God knows all things, is all powerful, and that he loves us, because maybe he knows all things and is all powerful, but he's playing a big joke on us. Okay, and maybe it's not the best idea to follow him, but he loves you, has a purpose for you, and wants the best for you. It's a no-brainer. I get it. It's hard. I've been there. I'm not going to say I've done it every single time. But if we really think about it, the best choice is for us to follow his direction.
Yeah. And I think that staying the course in a really, when you're in a place where it's really hard to stay obedient or to stay full of faith, is really, really hard. And I think that while I have believed and continue to believe the things that God has spoken to us, it's been hard to stay in the struggle. It's like, it almost feels like you keep choosing the struggle.
Yeah.
And it's like, why do you keep choosing the struggle, Joanna? I don't get it. And so it's hard to choose to stay in that and stay full of faith. And then God says, well, we need to develop endurance. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't feel like I have the stamina. I don't feel like I can breathe.
We don't.
I don't feel like, maybe for like a couple days I'm good, and then all of a sudden something hits and I'm like, oh my God, here we go. Okay, I can't keep doing this. And so God wants to instill endurance. And I'm like, okay, God, so if you're going to give me a little more stamina to get through this, great. And then I get through it a little more. And then I'm like, oh my God, something happens and I'm like complaining, or I'm like, I can't do this anymore. Or my prayers are like, God, what are you doing? And I'm really honest with God. I'm not being disrespectful or anything. It's just between God and I. We just do. And I'll talk to God like he's my dad. Like, Bobby, what's happening? What are we doing, God? I can't take this anymore. And while that's okay for me to talk to my father like my father, and for me to vent as his daughter, he accepts that from me. He's also taking these moments to teach me, okay, now I need you to think of it this way. And so there's perspective shifts. And then there's, because when your perspective is shifted, then the rest of you shifts, the way that you talk shifts, your behavior shifts. And so the way you move changes. And so I'm like, prayers are always like, God, please give me joy. God, please give me joy. Bald fist, angry, God, please give me joy. Give me joy. Because I don't know how else to ask for it. I also don't know how else to be joyful. It's such a hard season. But that's just what God is taking me through. Because your attitude matters in the course of it. You don't want to go through the struggle in vain. You want to be able to get by, not just getting by, but getting by excellently.
Yeah. Yeah, and as you get by and you do so not excellently, you're preparing yourself so that you'll get by excellently in the future. You know, the thing is that if God were to just give you what he has intended for you, it would be a curse, not a blessing. He has to prepare us for it. And so, like you said, we're developing endurance so that whatever our next season is, which I'm like, what you got going on over there? Whatever it is, we're going to be like, oh, now we went through this to get here. We're good.
Mm-hmm.
And God's developing that endurance in us. And one thing I want to say to encourage anybody who's listening who might be going through a similar season is that if you are stepping out in extreme faith for God, trust and believe that he is faithful to sustain you. One of the most sustaining things that you will need during that journey is his voice.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to need his validation because you're being stretched, right? Imagine if we went through this without his voice. Nah, I'm sorry. I would just be like, are we good? Because it's too stretching. I'm being stretched so thin. I need to hear him say, it's okay. I'm still here.
Mm-hmm.
We're still going in the right direction. Just keep going. I know it's getting hard. I know that you want to quit, but don't quit. Don't you dare quit. There's days where he's like, I love you, Eric. You're doing well. Keep going. There's days where he's like, don't you dare quit. There's days where he's a little more tough with me. There's days where he's softer. Every day he gives me what I need. And every single time, Joanna can tell you, every single time we've been this close to saying, all right, you know what? We need to call. We need to shift. We need to stop with all of the content and we need to shift our priorities into this and that and start looking into other ways for us to establish financial freedom, all of that, right? And finding a new home or whatever in our own strength, because that's been tempting.
Yeah.
We've been tempted at times. And every time he's like, nah, don't do that. He's not screaming, but it's firm. It's like, don't do that. And we're like, okay.
And community has been really important in all that.
Community's been huge.
Yeah, really close people that are just as full of faith in what God is doing with them, just full of faith that God is who he says he is, full of faith in his word. That's been really vital to us because God uses them to validate us as well, or or, you know, to keep us accountable. And when I say keep us accountable, I don't mean like telling us like we're wrong, actually, like, don't you dare quit.
Yeah.
And it's been really important because when you're going through a struggle, you think of it as like the most darkest circumstance where you really can't see, but when you have when you have God's voice there, the valley, the dark room doesn't feel so lonely. It doesn't feel so pointless. It doesn't feel so endless.
Yeah.
When you have God's voice and you have community, you need to hear you're going in the right direction. You need to hear whatever God is choosing to speak to through them for you. It's vital.
I have like a mental picture where before I always thought that the mountain symbolized like, it symbolizes arriving. You climb the mountain, you board. And I always, not like actively, but just mentally, when you think of meeting with God, you think of the mountaintop. And now, to me, it's more of a picture of when you're on the top of the mountain. Yeah, you're meeting with God, but it's both of you facing out hand in hand, right? You've done this journey together, and you get to see, you get to see the people, you get to see the work, you get to see the beauty and all of that, and you look out. Whereas the valley is just you and him. And instead of looking out, you're face to face. And he's looking you into your eyes, and he's validating you, and he's mending your wounds, and he's hiding you in him and protecting you. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, thou art with me. He's with us in the valley and in the mountaintop. The mountain, we're there. We cry out, we get to see the beauty and splendor of the work that he's called us to. And that doesn't mean that we don't get face to face with God up there. It's just a picture that I have mentally. And so there's value within the difficulty that you sometimes go through in following his voice, the difficulty that you sometimes go through in pursuing what he's called you to, and believing in him and committing yourself to the work that he wants to do in you. That hard work. It's like the gym. There's value in all of those reps. There's value in you emptying the tank when you feel like you only have 8 in you and you do 11. That's a huge feeling, right? It's a huge difference. And so, yeah, I know for me, like what God has been speaking to us has just been keep going, sustain, have faith, be obedient. I'm with you. And it's been a lot of repetition. We needed the repetition. Sometimes the repetition has gotten frustrating, I'm not gonna lie. But we have needed it. And yeah. You always take that sigh of relief, the breath of relief. You feel good with this one? Anything you want to add? Guys, thank you so much for being here in today's episode. We hope that us sharing some of what God has spoken to us is helpful to you, and that you're able to continue to pursue God in your journey and hear from him. Tell us in the comments what God has been speaking to you lately. What's your major theme or your sub-themes lately? And we hope to see you guys again next week. God bless you guys. Peace.